I want to welcome everyone to the launch of a new cardiology community. This will be on dyslipidemia, and I'm delighted to welcome our editor-in-chief for this clinical community, Roger Blumenthal of Johns Hopkins University, who will be leading this effort with his colleague Seth Martin to bring all of us all of the key new data and discussion and interpretation in the field of lipids, which has become, a hot topic now with the release of the new guideline, as well as evolving data on HDL. All of the lipids will be covered, and so we're really looking forward to having you lead us in this field, Roger.
Well, thanks, Chris. It'll be an honor and pleasure to work with you. These guidelines, as you know, are very LDL-centric. They really speak nothing of HDL and triglycerides. And there's a lot of gray areas in these guidelines, and there's going to be a lot more treatment of people who, in the past, we thought had great lipids, people who had LDLs in that 70 to 100 range, and really just on the basis of what their birth certificate says, their chronologic age, will now qualify for treatment. So there'll be a lot of interesting discussion. It'll be great to work with you on this.
Well, this is really, I'd say, an ideal topic for a clinical community where we'll have different formats of expert opinions. People can comment back and forth. We can have quizzes and polls, slides of the latest discussion, highlight an article of the month. I think it's exactly what we need to try and understand what do these new guidelines mean, who should be treated, who shouldn't, what about HDL, what about triglycerides that the FDA has been recently pretty negative about, and so lots and lots of questions in this area.
And Chris, these guidelines are solely focused on randomized controlled trials, and it's interesting because we have so many cholesterol trials, but if you took that same attitude and said we were going to do the same thing with blood pressure guidelines or diabetes guidelines, you couldn't do it. In the past, you and I have been so focused on ideal levels of LDL and non-HDL. Now we don't have any targets. You could say that in blood pressure, you could take the attitude, well, you just use one medication, get the blood pressure down, and there's really not that much data about getting the blood pressure down less than 160. And also in the blood sugar field, we say less than 7% for an A1C is ideal, but in reality, the number of randomized clinical trials we have is pretty darn small. So the lipid guidelines went solely randomized controlled trials. We won't have targets. Non-HDL is hardly mentioned. So there'll be a lot of very smart people, some of whom at your institution and mine, who will find things that they would propose would be somewhat things to improve upon in the next set of guidelines.
It's very true. And so for us as clinicians, all the patients we see, we're managing their LDL. Should we be checking cholesterol? Should we be titrating, adding new therapies? Lots and lots of questions that emerge. And so I think we're really looking forward to this new clinical community to be a place that we can go to, find out new information, get new perspectives on the data and treatment approaches, and get a dialogue going with everyone on CardioSource.
That's for sure, and I'm reminded of Monday Night Football when we think about how long this document took to come out. It was close to 6 years, and it was what Mike Ditka likes to say with Keyshawn Johnson, come on, man. It never should have taken this long, Chris, and hopefully we'll be able to, now that the ACC and AHA is in charge, we need to have ways to speed up the implementation and publication of new updates. That's an important thing that our clinical community will deal with.
That's terrific. Well, I want to thank you and Seth both for leading this, and welcome everyone to come back to this clinical community and see all of the evolving data.